Greetings. This is TK aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. We're going to try this again. After experiencing some slight technical difficulties, we're going to go over Chapter 4 of Mantra and Yantra, which is titled Mantra and Yantra, an Internal Havan. Now, a havan basically means a ritual, a type of ritual that is done with a consecration of fire. So it is done as an offering, and it's a burnt offering, right? The offering is burned in the fire. Now, the mundane say it helps to bestow good luck. But those of us who study yoga understand that this is a type of ritual that sets you into alignment, right? So, this video is going to be all about the metaphysical breakdown of Will Smith and Chris Rock. Absolutely not. However, the thing about luck is just something that people say when they don't understand the subtleties, right? The Gabalion says that chance is just another word for one of the laws gone unrecognized. And here's the thing, there are certain patterns and rhythms and cycles and harmonies that exist in life. And when you align yourself with those patterns, rhythms, harmonies, and cycles, your life seems to be very lucky. Because if you're in alignment with something that naturally works, that means you're not just being carried on your own effort. You're literally being carried by nature and the cosmos. It's a lot like flying a kite, right? You don't have enough power to throw a kite up into the sky and keep it there. You're actually relying on the patterns of the wind and the air currents. And all you're doing is you're angling your kite just right so that it can be supported by the forces that are already there. This is what it's like when this is what it means to come into an alignment with these cosmic patterns. There are already patterns in place to live healthy and to live abundantly and to live a good life. It's already there. You don't have to create anything. So for someone who exists within a pattern of good luck, this is a person who has aligned themselves with certain things. Now, it has nothing to do with being a good person, has nothing to do with morality, right? But has everything to do with the conscious choices that you make on a daily basis. So this goes for health, this goes for wealth, abundance of all types, right? It has to do with what you eat, with what you consume, with your eyes, with your ears, with your nose, with your mouth, with your skin, right? Because it isn't smoking that causes cancer. Smoking just provides the material for cancer to build. Cancer comes from patterns that you put yourself through, patterns that you're not allowing certain energies to be circulated. So what do? They get blocked up inside of you and they begin to look for an outlet. So if you're providing different outlets for these things to form, well, they're going to form, right? Just like if you have to take a poop, really bad things are going to happen if you don't allow it out. If you hold it in your system and don't give it a way to circulate, it's going to end up in your blood, right? This is how the human body works. Your body is this vessel where things are supposed to transmit and filter and go in and out, right? So if you set up a pattern of retention, right, it's going to have to find other ways to get out of your body. And most of the time, if it isn't a natural way, well then you'll have to suffer the consequences of that pattern, right? So, welcome, welcome, welcome. We're gonna try this again because we were just doing this, and like I said, technical difficulties. But we're back. We are back. MC Maestro says you'll throw up the poop or your intestines will burst. Yeah, many number of bad things will happen. That's why even in tantra they say that it's not, no act in itself is impure. There's no thing specifically that you're doing that's bad. It's how you do these things, and it's how you manage the balance or the imbalance of such a thing. Because here's what it is: we talk about imbalance, but in truth, the universe, all it is balance. So it's going to balance itself out one way or another. even if balance means your physical death. Did you catch that? Cosmic principles have nothing to do with how you feel, nothing to do with you personally. It's literally just a system of rules, patterns, and cycles. Nothing to do with who's good and who's bad. Everything to do with what you stick to. All right? So let's get to Mantra and Yantra, Chapter 4, and Internal Havan. What's that mudra called? Does anybody know what that mudra is called? This time, I'm going with sparkling water, blueberry, and pomegranate. Remember, children, the universe is composed of patterns. Nothing is random, and nothing happens for no reason. If you think that it's random, or it's luck or bad luck, that simply means you don't understand what pattern is happening. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to suffer. You don't have to suffer unless you want to. If you don't like the pattern that your life is currently manifesting, find a new one. Find a new one. All right, so I'm gonna flip this camera around. See, all you have to do is change the title and you start seeing some new faces pop up. Shout out to Society Ejects. Okay, so Vitarka Mudra. My mudra book is downstairs. Is it downstairs? Or is it up here? Yeah, it's downstairs. We'll see it sure enough. Let's get to this chapter again. Because my video cut off last time, I'm gonna go ahead and reread the first page. It was only like 3 paragraphs where it talks about how yantra is composed. So if you don't know, this is an example of a yantra. A yantra is a visual representation of a mantra. A mantra is known as a vibration that influences the elements. That's what a mantra is. A mantra is a set of vibrations and frequencies that influence the elements. It's not something necessarily that somebody made up. It is an example of patterns that exist on a higher plane of consciousness. And these higher planes of consciousness can be accessed by a refined mind, a refined state of awareness. This is why we practice meditation and concentration and control of the attention span, because without those things, it's very, very impossible, or at least extremely difficult, to reach higher states of consciousness. This is a yantra. And as you can see, there are basic shapes within it. You see a square on the outside, you see a circle on the inside, and you see a bunch of triangles. These shapes are typically going to be present in most all yantras. Now, they're not arbitrary for no reason. They actually do represent different concepts. And that's what we're going to get into in detail with these next few pages. And as I said before, because this is a brand new video, this is going to be the next book that we study on yoga. And it will begin next week. Jnana Yoga. Please grab your copy. It's worth it. This is one of the more... This one is going to be a little bit more advanced than the previous 3. Definitely worth your time if you're looking to really understand how all this stuff works. Okay, let's get into it. Bing bong. Reina Leona, peace, peace. ZJ says, hey, that mudra you're doing is illegal now. LOL, don't get canceled. I don't live in that place. These fools can't cancel me. They can't cancel their own bad habits. They can't cancel their own misfortune. They can't cancel their own negative patterns of thought. I'm not worried about any of these people. Trust and believe. I got an answer for all of that stuff. Let one of them talk about canceling me. All right. Mantra and Yantra, an internal havan. Yantra means an instrument, a medium by which one can access the deeper layers of consciousness. Yantras are geometrical patterns, geometrical symbols, which represent the movement of energy within consciousness. I don't have my blackboard. But let's look at it this way. Reality, we can say, exists as one thing, but there are two poles, consciousness and dense matter. ZJ says, hey, I was just joking. I know, bro. I'm joking back. No one's going to make me have to tap in and channel the spirit of Bernie Mac. So we got consciousness and we got matter. Now here's the thing. Matter is lifeless and dead, inert. It only takes up form based on the patterns it witnesses within consciousness. Consciousness is beyond matter. It doesn't do anything. It just is. What does the doing is energy. Energy is the state in between pure consciousness and pure matter. So it is energy that fluctuates and bounces up and down and causes life, and it also causes us awareness of the different levels, right? So to get to higher planes is going to require access to higher energy or more prana, right? Now, most people do not have an experience beyond these extremely low dense levels because most people aren't cultivated or refined enough to receive, generate, and utilize higher levels of prana. Because in order to do that, you have to begin restructuring how you see reality. You have to literally start letting go of certain things because certain mindsets and certain emotional states are inconducive to prana, to higher levels of prana. So most people have enough prana, just like animals. You have enough prana to wake up, eat, have sex, use the bathroom, go to work, and come back home. Most people have enough prana just to do that basic stuff. So in order to do higher level things, you're going to have to learn how to generate and cultivate more prana. As a matter of fact, to even break out of that cycle of animal existence, you have to cultivate more prana. And it's certainly doable if that's what you want. It's not for everybody, but it is doable if that's what you want. Now, that being said, at these lower levels, the patterns are very scattered and diverse. But as you reach these higher levels of existence, the patterns begin to unify into into a set of potentialities. Down here, those potentials are expressed. So here, they're more like seeds, more like concepts. They haven't quite yet taken shape yet. But by the time they cross this barrier, they begin to enter the world of formation. And this is where we see the world of external, surface level things. Everyone appears to be a different person with different opinions and feelings. You have different animals and different trees and different events, and time is happening. On the surface, it looks like everything is so different and scattered. But if you're able to perceive what is behind the surface level, you begin to notice more and more similarities to the point that you realize all life is but one life. So that's one of the reasons why they call this upper triangle the causal plane, because this plane represents the cause and these planes represent the effect. So what he was saying here is that Yantra means an instrument, a medium by which one can access the deeper layers of consciousness. Yantras are geometrical patterns, geometrical symbols, which represent the movement of energy within consciousness. Several different geometric figures are used in the creation of yantras. And as I pointed out earlier, we've got the square, we've got the circle, we've got the triangle. So let's see what those represent. The square of 4 gates. The first figure is the square, which is the outline of the yantra. The square represents the material world, the entire creative world, with the four directions of north, east, south, and west. It represents the world within which we exist at present, the world of senses and sense objects. This world or square has four entrances, which are called dwara, portals. The portals represent manas, buddhi, chitta, and ahamkara. Now, as you know from earlier study, these four represent the aspects of human consciousness. They represent the four functions of the mind. Where there is mind, there are these four functions. And as I described earlier, manas represents the aspect of mind which is responsible for the five senses. So everything that is heard, smelt, tasted, touched, seen, all aggregates into one center, and that is termed manas by the ancient Vedics, right? It doesn't make any decisions, it just gathers the information, just gathers the data. So this is the mind of the body. We talk about buddhi. This represents the level where intuition comes into play. Buddhi represents the state of consciousness that is beyond time, beyond space, and beyond attachment. It's very difficult to clearly perceive this level of mind, but everyone has the potential to access it. And every now and then it does override the lower levels of human consciousness. Next, we have chitta, which translates as memory. Now, it's not simply your personal memories of your childhood and what you did yesterday. Chitta represents the entire substance of memory, all the memory of not just the human race, but of the earth, all of memory. Now, your awareness is only refined enough to carve and slice out your little portion of memory of what you did yesterday and what you did 10 years ago. But truly, chitta represents all memory, and you do have the potential to access any of it. But like I said, your awareness is only refined enough to access your personal experience. Then, of course, we have ahamkara, and this is known as the ego aspect. And what ego is the function of self that attaches and says, this is me. I like this. I don't like this. That's what ego is. Ego is the function of the mind that says, hey, this brings pleasure. Oh, this brings pain. And it causes you to run or gravitate towards it. So notice how they work together. Manas, I said, is the aggregation of the five senses. Everything you smell, taste, touch, hear, see, etc. It brings that information in, and ahamkara looks at the memories and says, oh, that felt good. I want more of it. This is me. Ahamkara says, oh, that was bad. I don't want none of it. Get that away from me. Buddhi is the highest self that exists beyond those things. And it can look at things from a higher perspective beyond being attached to memories or feelings or ego. But for the most part, people are ruled by this ahamkara level. So we talked about the square. We talked about the dwara, which represent the portals, right? The four entrances. And that's what is represented by these four aspects: manas, buddhi, chitta, ahamkara, which I explained. So manas, buddhi, chitta, ahamkara. That's what these four parts of the square represent. Let me know in the chat if that was clear, if you understand what I'm talking about here. Peace, Akate. Alchemist Ketu, konnichiwa. Frame Star Films, welcome back. Stray Panther, you were right. In a way, you predicted the future. I tried my best to get back on that original stream, but it simply would not let me. So I had no choice but to stop this one and start again. So I'll have to find a more long-term solution, because this was happening last time. But nothing stops an idea whose time has come. Hold on, I'm coming. 7 Caps, Sun, Moon, peace and greetings. Welcome, welcome. MC Maestro in the building. Peace, brethren. We in there like swimwear. Okay. By the way, if you don't know, that mudra that I was displaying is called the Vitarka mudra. It's an ancient mudra You can look it up yourself. Vitarka, Vitarka Mudra. Let's continue. So, this world or square has 4 entrances which are called Dwara portals, and they represent Manas, Chitta, Buddhi, and Ahamkara. These 4 components of the mind are agents through which one functions and survives in the sensorial world. All the knowledge, perceptions, and experiences of the world are derived either from Buddhi, Chitta, Manas, or Ahamkara. Everything that you know in this present life comes from these 4 gateways. Most people are not refined enough to pick up information that is beyond these 4 gateways. Now, information exists at all times in all spaces, but most of us are only tuned into the radio stations of ego, body, mind, personal memory, and tiny, tiny, tiny bits of intuition. They are the gateways to experience existence or life. That is the first level of a yantra, the square with 4 doors. The circle of timelessness. Often on top and often within the framework of the square, there is a circle which represents timelessness, continuity, the cycle of birth and death. Whether you believe in reincarnation or not, birth and death are cosmic realities. Whether you believe in reincarnation or not, birth and death are cosmic realities. Your acceptance or rejection of the idea does not change the reality which has governed the universe from time immemorial. So a lot of these all of these concepts that are talked about in these books here, it doesn't matter if you believe them or not, because what we're talking about is cosmic principles. Your acceptance or rejection of the idea does not change the reality which has governed the universe from time immemorial. So again, as I keep saying, because a lot of people are still attached to the speaker as opposed to the lesson. Even though personality is fun, the teaching should speak for itself. So what is talked about in these little books here are things that are proven by experience, by your experience. Like, you literally don't have to take anyone's word for it. Birth and death are cosmic realities. Therefore, what we believe changes all the time, but not the permanent reality which transcends all beliefs, ideas, and speculations. The circle represents timelessness and the cycle of birth and death. That's what the circle represents. Sri Shankaracharya says in the Stotra Moha Mudgar, "Many times are we born, many times do we die. Many times we have slept in the womb of the mother." Aww. So we got the square we talked about, the 4 gates, and we talked about the circle here, which represents the timeless, eternal cycle of birth and death. From the womb to the tomb. From the womb to the tomb. Here's the square. You see those 4 points? The circle is between this and that. Straight Panther 79 says, "Womb, my first apartment." So many times are we born, many times do we die, many times we have slept in the womb of the mother. For what purpose? For what purpose? MC Maestro says, "Ha Kadesh, Antakarana." It's worth looking into. So for what purpose are we born and we die? To realize our true essential nature. Until one realizes one's true nature, one is caught in the cycle of birth and death. "I ain't coming back here again. I ain't coming back this plane no more." Okay, well, did you realize your true nature? If the answer is no, well, you'll keep coming back until you do. It is ignorance that causes reincarnation. Until one realizes one's true nature, one is caught in the cycle of birth and death. Only after such realization can one be free from this cycle of birth and death. This freedom is the state of Jivan Mukta, one who has become free from the attractions and bondages of life. Free from the attractions and bondages of life. Can you imagine for a moment what it would be like for you personally, in your current state? What would it be like to be free from the attractions and bondages of life? To be free from the things that attract you, and to be free from the things that limit you. What would it be like to be free? Can you think of that? Can you think of what that would be like? To literally be free? I want to know. And also, I see that we have more people here in the chat than we have likes. So please, if you like this information, please hit the like button. So are you thinking of what it's like to be free? Are you thinking of what it's like? Can you? Can you see that? To be alive, but at the same time be free. Something to consider. Nate Garcia, peace. JM says, that's like asking, what more is there more to than life? Indeed. Lil Moody says, are we really free if we have a dream sensor? I'm not quite sure what a dream sensor is. I don't want to assume. You might have to clarify that for me. Swami Satchidananda's example. If you look at Swami Satchidananda's life, you will find that it is divided into 20-year cycles. He lived at home until he was 20. Then his spiritual quest started. He lived with his guru, and as a parivrajaka from 21 to 40, from 1943 to 1960. Thereafter, he worked to fulfill the mandate of his guru, the propagation of yoga, which he did for another cycle of 20 years, from 1963 to 1983. He was ready to leave in 1983, but then I appeared on the scene and requested him, please, stay at Ganga Darshan for a few more years to teach me. He said, all right, I will give you 5 years of my time. Therefore, from 1983 to 1988, he gave his personal time to me at Ganga Darshan. Then, in 1989, he went to Rakia, and the Rakia chapter was also 20 years, from 1989 to 2009. Vitarka Mudra. In the life that Sri Swamiji lived, many of us have witnessed him as a teacher, a guru, an enlightened being, as a siddha, and we all had our own personal relationship with him. However, what makes me aware of his spirituality is his lifestyle. When I observe his life, and I have been lucky enough to observe him closely right from the early days, I discovered that in 2003, he became free of all karmas. Not a single karma remained in his life which he needed to work for, fulfill, or accomplish. One more time here, that might hint to the meaning of these karmas. Not a single karma remained in his life which he needed to work for, fulfill, or accomplish. On several occasions, he said to us, if you hear me say something, remember it, because I'm not going to repeat those words again. I'm cleaning my memory of all impressions. If you guys remember about chitta and the samskaras, right? If you hear me say something, remember it, because I'm not going to repeat those words again. I'm cleaning my memory of all impressions. I'm wiping my hard drive. In this manner, he actually wiped clear his mind of everything, his desires, his aspirations, his ambitions, and became free from all karmas. From 2003 to 2009, he lived as a Jivan Mukta, one who has transcended body awareness and mental limitations. He was living the state of the highest spiritual attainment, where the mind is totally subdued and the awareness is fixed on higher consciousness. I can understand if you've never had a spiritual experience. None of this even sounds real. I can completely understand that. But when it comes to personal spiritual experience, it isn't something that you can get secondhand. You literally have to do the work yourself to even comprehend what's being talked about here. Because the lessons come with each level. Even if you read ahead in life's book, you don't understand what you're reading until you get to that level. And you can't skip steps because life's going to make you repeat what you skipped. At the beginning of the day, you literally have to do the work that is on your plate. Opinions have nothing to do with it. So, he was living the state of the highest spiritual attainment, where the mind is totally subdued and the awareness is fixed on higher consciousness. I'm telling you this to explain that in order to access the deeper levels of the mind, one has to eliminate the accumulated stuff. Doesn't that make sense? Does that require any stretch of the imagination to figure out? He says, I'm telling you this to explain that in order to access the deeper levels of the mind, one has to eliminate the accumulated stuff. Only when one has removed everything can one claim that he or she is free from bondage. Can you imagine what it's like to be free from all that stuff that you accumulated, all the ideas that you had, all the memories, all the shit that you're attached to, the concept of culture and race and gender and age and where you live and all these different attachments that you have that you literally think define you. Look at yourself. Look in the mirror. You have all these ideas and you say, this is me, this is me, this is me, this is me. What would it be like if you were to let that go? Because you know that's a lie. You're none of those things. And if you are, you probably shouldn't be in this information. Those are illusionary titles that we give to matter. And matter does not have consciousness. In time. In time. Hecate says, Travis, I had work with mental disabled. How would that work for them? Well, in order to intentionally work with these concepts, you have to be still in mind. And if that's not possible for you, then intentionally reaching these levels and gradually expanding your awareness isn't really one of your missions for this incarnation. And that shouldn't be too far-fetched because generally 80 to 85% of the people on the planet are not cut out for this kind of work. So it would only make sense. It would only make sense. Stray Panther says, erase all the woulda, coulda, shouldas. Right. Those woulda, coulda, shouldas are extremely heavy and have a massive impact on how we see the world. I know it had a massive impact on me. The woulda, coulda, shoulda, that doubt. You know how deep that can drag you into depression, and for how long? Never again. I don't regret anything ever again. No, not ever again. I can't do it. I refuse. You couldn't pay me to regret something. JM says erasing memories doesn't sound so bad, so long as it doesn't mean having to re-experience the things that created them. Absolutely. Absolutely. So it's assumed that it's not just erasing the memories because they hurt, but even letting go the good memories, because they're just experiences that happened, and that's that. There's no reason to hold on to any of it. Sunshine Chick, welcome back. Let's keep going. So as he was saying, I'm telling you this to explain that in order to access the deeper levels of the mind, one has to eliminate the accumulated stuff. Only when one has removed everything can one claim that he or she is free from bondage. If there's a pending desire at the time of death, if there's a pending desire at the time of death, then you are not free from the bondages of life. Life still has an attraction for you. Man, I remember George saying in the live stream once, you know, even a desire for a piece of chocolate, right? Desire, period. It doesn't matter what the desire is for. It's desire. It's the desire that causes attachment, that causes suffering. It sounds easy, but if you really analyze your life, how many of these desires are running the show? All that stuff that you want to do. What's going to happen if you pass and you don't get to do it? Do you think the desire is just going to dissolve? No. Desire is a very strong force. Desire, even these yogis say that desire can persist even up into the higher levels of samadhi. Or I should say ego can exist that high. Amber D says, so that's basically being aware 24/7, right? Being intensely in the now. Well, what does that mean? How do you define that? How do you define being intensely in the now? We Grow Natural says, it's not easy. Honesty. Thank you. It's not easy. Hell, I still have desires, but I have much less desires than I did years ago. And my desires are more simple, right? That's another thing. Some of us have these complex desires. Some of them aren't even realistic. Have you ever had an unrealistic desire that you held on to just stubbornly? You ever had that before? I'm talking about it's not even realistic. Yet you're sitting here beating yourself up because you don't have it. Insanity. And the human creature is perpetually insane. The circle of life and death. Bondage in life is represented by the circle of the yantra. So notice here we've got this circle inside the square. And if you look on the cover of Tatwashuddhi, you'll see that as well. I used to wonder why the circle was so, it seemed out of place. Because if you look at the order of the yantras, it should go square, moon, triangle, then circle, then dot. But notice this is shaped like a yantra is supposed to be shaped. Square on the outside, which represents the 4 aspects of the mind, and then the circle, which represents the endless loop of life and death. But notice what's inside it. We've got the fire element, which represents relentless activity and transformation. We've got the water element, and then we've got the Akasha element. They don't do anything for no reason. Nothing is just because. Let's keep going. And as I look, I see that here as well. You see the circle and the square? Even here, you see the circle and the square? Here's another yantra. Society Eject says, yup, and most of our desires are programs. Exactly. Not one of us came up with our desires. They're installed into us. They're not even ours. They're not even ours. We're attached to some distant memory that we probably forgot about, and it has a echoing effect that is increasingly difficult to get rid of because it's like a drug addiction, forever chasing that first high. Definitely not something that I miss. Because you start to understand that there's not fulfillment in the chasing of desire. Like, things look appealing, but when you do them enough, you're gonna realize that the fulfillment that you're seeking doesn't exist within the things that you're looking for. Nothing in this world truly will satisfy you. Because if it did, you wouldn't have the desires. You know what I'm saying? Desires for certain amounts of money. I'm telling you, once you get it, you're gonna realize, I mean, it's cool, but the problem hasn't been answered. The desire for sexual experience is cool, but you're gonna realize you're not fulfilled. The desire for food, you know what I'm saying? It never ends. Desire is an endless loop. That's why it's that circle. It doesn't end. It's a trap. That's what causes reincarnation. Because we don't realize it. We're so caught up in the animal aspect of chasing the hamster wheel. But that's something that you have to learn with wisdom. You have to learn it in time. What does he say here on page 48? Until one realizes one's true nature, one is caught in the cycle of birth and death. Caught. That means you're not even in your free will. You're not even doing it out of your own free will. You're doing it out of animal nature. And like I said, these desires come to us as programs. The collective hive mind of the masses of humans are running on programs that have been given to us. I didn't know what a Birkin bag was until somebody told me. I didn't know what a Maserati Ferrari. I didn't know what $1 million. I didn't know what a Gucci bag belt. I didn't know what any of this stuff was before somebody told me, right? I didn't know what it means to live off the grid or grow my own farm. Like, I didn't understand any of this stuff until somebody told me what it meant and made me feel good about it. You know what I'm saying? All the different sexual things that we desire, we weren't born with that. We saw it somewhere, somebody told us. These desires are planted within us as seeds. And they multiply, because just as you go to complete one desire, just as you go to complete it, it has already sprouted more seeds. So when you do achieve that sexual experience, now you want more of it times 3. And then when you get each one of those, you want more of it. Now it's times 9. Who stops at one Birkin bag? To this day, I haven't even seen one of those. I don't know how to spell it. I can't even spell it in Google to find a picture of it. Nor do I care. But you get the point. It could be for anything. It could be for anything. But, you know, it takes a level of self-awareness to, like, really come into an experience of that. Most people lack self-awareness, so they keep chasing things like that. You know what I'm saying? And it's draining. It drains your life force. You depreciate. You start to deteriorate because your body and your prana, your energy, your life force is being utilized to chase and burn up that hamster wheel. And then you die, and on your mind, you're thinking, oh, I wish I coulda, shoulda, woulda, like Stray Panther said. That energy doesn't go anywhere, because throughout your life now, remember in the beginning of this video, I kept talking about the universe is made of patterns. You don't have to suffer. When you die, you're going to look back and realize you've created endless patterns of desire. So that's what you are. When you leave this body, your spirit has now gone into the shape of endless loops of desire and seeking. Imagine if you spend 50 years, chasing sex, that's what your spirit has become shaped into. A hungry incubus or succubus. You're going to come back to fulfill those desires again because you're attached to them. You want to chase accumulation of wealth and physical things, material things. You've shaped your spirit now into that. A gluttonous beast. And you're going to manifest as that again. That's just how it is. Like, it doesn't get wiped away because your body dies. You created thought forms. You created echoes. You've created patterns now on the subtle planes. They don't go away. So it's not about good and bad. It's not about sin and punishment. No, it's not about none of that stuff. You're literally creating energy waves in existence. You're doing it. The devil didn't do it to you. White Jesus didn't do it to you. You chose to do that. And so you have to harmonize and balance those patterns some way. That's the debt. That's the original sin. Believing that you are a physical body and that you have these desires. That's what the sin is. Because when you're doing that, you're not looking within. You're not looking at the truth. You're chasing the lies. But again, this it doesn't matter how much you hear it or how much somebody says it. You have to come to an understanding of that yourself. Like, I've been told this when I was young. I don't want to hear that shit. But you understand it when you're ready to. I can remember a clear example of when I first started realizing this. I wanted so badly to be a rock star, right? I wanted to be on stage and perform. In 2004, I had myself this little band, and we were going on tour, and we were doing all this cool stuff. And I got the idea, like, it doesn't matter what level of stage I perform on. It's all the same. It doesn't matter if it's 5 people or 500 people. It's all the same. So I realized I completed that desire. I did perform, and people saw me, and people were singing the lyrics in the front row. I got panties and bras thrown at me. It was awesome. I did that. It wasn't at the superstar level, but I didn't need it to be, because it's the same thing. The only difference is the degree. All experiences are the same. The only difference is the degree, right? You can play football and love it. You can play with your friends. You can play in the local league. You can play in the big league. Not much changes except the degree. You're still playing football, right? You can drive a jalopy or a Ferrari. It's still a car. There's not much you can do with it other than go to work and cruise around town. You see what I'm saying? Like, all the rest of it is just an illusion. Amber D says, satisfied now with such simplicity, it's amazing. It's so freeing. Yes, ma'am. That's exactly what I'm talking about. We Grow Natural says, yes, simplicity. Yes, yes, yes. Stray Panther 79 says, sadly, yes. And I love sex too. Must be conquered. And the body loves sex. The animal aspect of the body loves sex. And there are spiritual, mental, and emotional aspects of it too. But, like I said, once you start seeing through it, you start to realize, really, the whole thing is to ask yourself, what do I love about it? Why do I love it? Why do I have these desires? When you start asking those questions, you start getting to the root. And once you find the root, you can satisfy that root and quench that fire. But if you never address the essence, it will always express itself in different forms. If you never address the essence, it will always express itself in different forms. Society Eject says Proverbs 27 and 20. Hell and destruction are never full, so the eyes of man are never satisfied. And look. That was Proverbs 27:20. Hell yeah, right there. Hell and destruction are never full, so the eyes of man are never satisfied. Ain't that something? Never satisfied. I love it. JM says confusing the body for self is like confusing one's car for self. You are not a car, you are someone in a car. Likewise, you are not a body, you are someone inside of a body. Absolutely. 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 But yeah, it's all the same. It really is. Once you learn to stop looking for differences, all you can see is the similarities. Differences are the illusion. Differences are the illusion. There's a very limited number of human experiences, and there's a very limited number of human personalities. There's a very limited number of human emotions. It's limited. Like, people are not as diverse and complex as I used to think, anyways. You just have to learn how to see the patterns, and you can figure this stuff out. Let's continue. So, where were we? Yeah, the circle of life and death. Bondage in life is represented by the circle of the Yantra, the cyclical continuation of life and death, the endless cycle of life and death. When one is able to liberate oneself from gross sensorial involvement, attractions, and identifications, one can identify with one's inner nature. And then one becomes free from worldly bondage and attraction to sense objects. When one is able to liberate oneself from gross sensorial involvement, attractions, and identifications, right? So, involvement with these senses, attraction to these senses, and identification with these senses. When you're able to liberate yourself from that, one can identify with one's inner nature. See, there's something behind all that stuff. There's something behind all that stuff. You can't look to the world for the truth or for these answers, because the whole world is caught up in this. I'm telling you, the number is extreme. It's like 85% to 90% even. The masses do not have the answer, and it's demonstrated. You can tell the type of tree it is by the fruit that it produces. You can tell the type of tree it is by the fruit that it produces. The masses are caught up in this shit. That's why they continually create more and more things to get involved in, more things to be attracted to, and more labels and titles to be identified with. It seems like every week, every month, there's a new label for people to identify with. Oh yeah, I'm this. Oh, I have that. Well, I'm a this, like, and then you got people stacking all these different labels to identify themselves. These are concepts that somebody came up with in an office somewhere. That's not what you are. And honestly, they don't even translate across the board. I'm a half rogue elf mage from the, you know what I'm saying, all these freaking titles that people have. Just what's behind those titles? What is it that you're containing with these words, you know? Amber D says, it's wild that I'm going through this exact stuff right now and learning this right now. Thank you for this. Thank you for being here. Louis says, more things to further engross you into matter. Exactly. Exactly. Trav, are you left hand path or right hand path? Man, I'm just trying to figure this shit out. Don't ask me that question. Lil Moody says, I never liked labels. It's like placing limitations on myself. Right, that's exactly what it is. Wolverine says, facts infinite. Peace, Wolverine. Let's keep it moving. From the tantric perspective, life and death are two sides of the same coin. MC Maestro says, Trav, are you a melanated god? Man. And then that's like then they come at you as if that's some kind of like labyrinth passcode. If I say no, then it's like, what, does that mean you're not going to talk to me anymore? If I say yes, then what's that mean? Are you going to exalt me as your internet savior? Why do you care what the hell I call myself? I don't even know you in person. Why does that even matter? Are the fruits that I'm producing the type of fruits that you want in your garden? If not, then go do something else. I'm the melanated god from the triple blackness. And then where'd you hear these titles from, right? Where do we get all these? The people that ask those questions, do you even know what that is? No, you're just quoting something that Bobby Hemmett said. We know how this goes. Let's keep going though. Soot on. That means Sate on. Soot. That means black. That means melanin. That's melanin. That's your melanin. Words, labels. We get stuck on words and we miss the meaning. We can't see the forest because we're looking at the damn trees. Again, 85% of the people who are into this stuff don't know what the hell they're talking about. 85% of people in the world don't know what they're talking about. Trust your study and your experience. Trust your observation of these patterns, right? Don't even take my word for it just because I'm talking about it. Like, look at this stuff. Test it. Test it. See if it makes sense. Louis says identity labels. Ew. Right. I hate it. I hate it. But I don't want to get canceled. From the tantric perspective, life and death are two sides of the same coin. When you come into this life, the other side follows. If you are born, you will die. If you die, you will be born. You know that if you are born, you will die at the end of your time. You don't need to read philosophy or to be educated for that. It is a reality. However, what one has not seen and therefore does not believe is that everybody who dies takes birth again. That is also a reality. Religions may or may not believe in reincarnation. Philosophies may or may not believe in it, but the cycle of birth and death is a cosmic reality. Yamaka says, based God. I remember. Framestar Film says, the demon guy. I remember. And see now, you're expecting me to perform according to the label that you've assigned to me. Now I've got to be the demon guy, or else you're not going to look at me the same, right? At least in your head. I'm a Gemini. We Grow Natural says, I just try to decode these daily signs. And you're right on track, because every single day is a new day with a new set of signs. Being in the moment, like Amber D said. Amber D says we can be fruitful and melanated gods in the esoteric world, right? No matter what our physical color is. Yeah, because it has nothing to do with the titles. Really the titles, they start leading to people and personal little groups and clubs, and we're getting away from the point now because everyone wants to have these popular special groups and titles. All this stuff right here has nothing to do with none of that. All this stuff is, like he said, we're cosmic reality, right? Doesn't matter if you're melanated or not, you will die, right? Doesn't matter if you're melanated or not. Desires cause bondage. Doesn't matter if you're melanated or not. Mantras and yantras allow you to have an experience on the inner planes. So all that other stuff right there, while there may be truth to it, I'm not saying it's not true. What I'm dealing with is higher than that. What I'm dealing with is higher than all that stuff. Yeah, it's true. But what I'm talking about is beyond melanin. Here they come. I can hear them coming for me now. We'll bring it, because what I have is experience and scholarship, and what you have are feelings that are easy to break. Lil Moody says, well said, be your own scientist, study your own theories, and test those theories, bro. Exactly. Let me see, Maestro says, Bobby Hemmett, Order of the Golden Dawn. Louis says, 20 viewers now, right? Lil Moody says, LMAO, they don't play about that melanin. I know, man. I gotta take a quick stab and then gain some distance. I have to attack that as a ranger. Ranged. You know, on the RPGs, I usually pick the dude who throws magic spells because it sucks to take that hit. I'm gonna cast my spells from a distance. Break them down before they get to me. Straight Panther 79 says, my focus daily is how am I special according to me? I found that I am a child. Yes, sir. Absolutely. Tantra says that life and death are continuous processes. One keeps coming back again and again. Nature has put a bolt and lock on the door which contains the memories, experiences, and awarenesses of past lives. Nature has put a bolt and a lock on the door which contains the memories, experiences, and awareness of past lives. This is done with a purpose. If one were to begin to remember the past, one would become crazy. Therefore, nature has done a good job of locking the door of the memories retained from the previous births. Ain't that true? Most people can barely take the memories of their own childhood, let alone past lives. JM says, funny that race should come up within the context of spirituality, as our auras can be any color of the rainbow. You'd be surprised how quickly humans are to mix humanity with spiritual things, to mix material, physical things when it comes to spiritual things. You'd be surprised. Just look around. Most people are surface level. They don't really tap into this stuff. It's the belonging to a club kind of thing. So that's where you get the whole race stuff. But that's not what this live stream is about. So yeah, nature has put a bolt and lock on the door which contains the memories, experiences, and awareness of past lives. This is done with a purpose. If one were to begin to remember the past, one would become crazy. Remember what we talked about in the chapter of Doth, how he was talking about Doth represents the level of awareness where you can very likely brush up upon what will be the equivalent of the subconscious mind of God. And that can potentially cause some disturbing effects. That was on page 106, verse number 15. There's also a dark side of Doth relating to what might be called the subconscious mind of God, and this could have strange results on the soul. Contacts with the personal subconscious can be disturbing enough, so one can well imagine how much more explosive would be the contacts with the universal subconscious, containing the whole past history and inner stresses of the logos. That's in A Practical Guide to Kabbalistic Symbolism, Volume 1. A lot going on. A lot going on. You got 72 motherfuckers in your head. That's the book title. Yamaika says, I heard a Dr. Eric Goodwin mention genetic blockers to keep consciousness from going any farther than ready. Yeah, I'm sure that there would be some type of physical equivalent, but I will definitely say that when it comes to levels of awareness, the hierarchy is definitely emotional and psychic, mental. Stray Panther, I hope that was very insightful. JM says, my thoughts exactly on past life memories would make us crazy if they were not locked up. In one of mine, I was told I was crucified, not something I would like to remember in this life. Oh, yeah. Back in the early days of Europe, they were crucifying everybody. It was happening on a daily basis. Not to mention the Middle East. That was crucifying and hanging and public tortures. That was a daily spectacle. See, they didn't have TV back then, but they had public executions. So it's very more than likely that in several of your past lives, you've been publicly executed. Good stuff. Framestar Film says, still do. Yeah. Good karma to be reincarnated in the US of A. So yeah, nature has put a bolt and a lock on the door which contains the memories, experiences, and awareness of past lives. This is done with a purpose. If one were to begin to remember the past, one would become crazy. Therefore, nature has done a good job of locking the door of the memories retained from previous births. The circle of the Yantra represents this continuous process of birth and death, and the rotation of consciousness and energy in every birth. That rotation of consciousness and energy in every life is evolution, which is a maturity of consciousness. So truly this is going on beyond your physical incarnation. There's a consciousness behind the body and the personality. It's the consciousness, or I should say the awareness of the consciousness that's evolving. And that evolution has to take place through a form. And the most basic form that evolution takes place through is the human body. So that's why he says here the rotation of consciousness. In other words, it's not just a cycle, it's more of a spiral going up, expanding. Bean12345 says, do you have any idea why my being attacked so much right now? It's because you are identifying as something to be attacked. You are identifying as a target. So nature gives you what you ask for. MC Maestro says, USA, the best nation to burn karma or accumulate it. The Malkuth of Asaya. Interlaced triangles of Shiva and Shakti. So again, we're dealing with these yantras. We typically have these squares, these circles, and then these series of interlaced triangles. And even if you look through the Sri Soundarya Lahiri, you're going to see those basic forms. Squares, circles, triangles. Square, circle, triangles. Inside the circle of the yantra, there are triangles. The inverted triangle pointing downwards represents Shakti, the power which is descending and confining itself into a perceivable identity, the body, the world, objects. This Shakti is the controller of time, space, and object. Consciousness is identified with the upright triangle, the ascending consciousness. Come on, camera. Focus. There you go. So yeah, the inverted triangle, as we learned from the last chapter, represents the feminine aspect, right? The feminine aspect is the Shakti. the power which is descending and confining itself to a perceivable identity. Right? So when you see that downward shaped triangle, especially inside of a yantra, that represents the power which is descending and confining itself into a perceivable identity. By the way, that's also what this means here, because all this stuff is based on yoga. Notice you've got the downward triangle and the upward triangle. The downward is the feminine, heading towards form. The upward is the masculine, heading back up towards consciousness. That's what this symbol represents of the two triangles, one pointing up, one pointing down. You know it. You know it. In the Yantras, these two triangles interlace or merge together, indicating the play of consciousness and energy, right? This means that while one is living in this material dimension, there exists the possibility of one's ascent into spiritual realms, higher realms. So it's not a bad thing per se. It's literally how you do what you do. Or I should say how you perceive what's happening, because you're not doing anything. This means that while one is living in this material dimension, there exists the possibility of one's ascent to spiritual realms, higher realms. If one is unable to harness that power of consciousness and energy, one's nature becomes materialistic and is bound by the influence of the sense objects. If one is unable to harness that power of consciousness and energy, one's nature becomes materialistic and is bound by the influence of the sense objects, by pleasure and comfort, acquisition and satisfaction. Sounds like an animal human to me. Sounds like the masses. Sounds like the 85%. One more time. If one is unable to harness that power of consciousness and energy, one's nature becomes materialistic and is bound by the influence of the sense objects, by pleasure and comfort, acquisition and satisfaction. However, you know what? JCom asks, wait, so can someone explain the esoteric symbolism behind will and rock? Well, look at what we just said. We got Shiva and Shakti here. The downward triangle is pointing towards Shakti, the physical plane, confinement into form. The upward represents consciousness, which is the movement of will, ascending, going upward. In Samkhya Darshan, he talks about how the interaction between consciousness and matter is perceived almost as a slap. Oh man, if I could find that page, that would be super clutch. Bondage and liberation. Okay, let's see. Pressure, consciousness, wakefulness. Maybe. We'll get to it next month. Definitely gonna have to change that title soon. But yeah, go the guy. That was clickbait. That was 100% clickbait. I'm not gonna talk about Will Smith and Chris Rock. MC Maestro says a magus brings true essence down while they ascend. Absolutely. In fact, we kind of have to in order to ascend, right? We have to become a function in the universe so that we can transcend being a monkey. MC Maestro says, yes, you can Goetia use some money, but where's that intent? Samsara. Exactly. Okay, let's keep going. So, however, while one lives in this world where one desires everything for oneself, there is also the possibility of transcending the gross level and experiencing the ascent. That's what this book is about. Cha-cha, 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 the ascent. Damn, son. Where'd you find this? So what he's talking about right there, those two triangles, you got the ascent and you got the descent. One heading down towards matter, one heading up towards consciousness. That's the flow. Where else do we see that? Where else do we see that? Let me see if I can find the image here in this other big ass book. Come on, come on. There it is. Here's another image of the ascent and the descent. You may have seen this earlier today if you follow my Instagram. The descent is represented by the 777 lightning bolt path of the sword. The ascent is represented by the serpent path going right back up. All this stuff is connected. So the downward pointing triangle and the upward pointing triangle, as displayed on the Tree of Life. You see it? All right. So, however, while one lives in this world where one desires everything for oneself, there is also the possibility of transcending the gross level and experiencing the ascent of consciousness back to the point. Thus, one of the two interlaced triangles is pointing downwards, representing the physical world, and the other is pointing upwards, representing transcendental union. In Prakriti, the matrix, time and object come together to give life. And in Chetana, consciousness, time and object disappear. So again, one of the characteristics of expanding beyond body consciousness is you'll start to notice that time and object begin to dissolve. What is the reason for that? Because time and object have a very heavy presence in the physical plane and a very light presence in the non-physical planes. Framestar Film says throat chakra, inhalation and exhalation. Beautiful how that works out. Stray Panther says King Arthur, the sword and the stone, Will Swordsmith, and Christ Rock with a sword in him. Oh man. Very nice. I mean, we can make it work, right? We can make it work. The truth exists in all things. Ain't nothing but patterns. MC Maestro says, I need a girl with that throat chakra game on point. Oh man. This guy. Ben12345 says, "Summer fucked going on with me. I blame Archons, probably my own fault. Things work out eventually or not. Oh well." Well, everything certainly does happen the way it's supposed to. I would get out of the habit of blaming things, though, and start taking into consideration what power do you have? You know, what role do you play in the future of things? What happened in the past happened. What can you do today, though? What can you do to start the process of getting where you want to be? How much of your energy do you spend on driving forward, and how much of your energy do you spend looking in the rearview mirror? These things are important. J. Camp says, well, the objection to transmute the material realm would be to transmute our desire for this realm, for consciousness. Absolutely. Because that's a very good observation. Because the thing is, you have desire built in as a function of the mind. It really isn't possible to completely eliminate it. But what you can do is direct desire towards the things that will cause liberation. So I've learned to begin gradually directing all of my desires strictly to study and practice of the information and the experiences that will cause liberation. So that's where my desires are. Understanding this information and processing this information. So yeah, you, instead of desiring material things, if you can train yourself to begin desiring those things that will lead to your growth, that's how you're going to start the process of getting out of this monkey cycle, hamster wheel stuff. MC Maestro says the smith needs the will to shape the rock of Christ. Man. Thank you. Now my stream is not going to get cut off because we're focused on what is important. Will Smith and Chris Rock. Jerry Panther 79 says other things going on. Got followed by wind at the lake today. Interesting. Interesting. So one more time, in Prakriti, which is existence as we know it, right? The whole totality of this physical plane, this giant egg that everything fits inside of, that's Prakriti. Consciousness, time and object come together to give life. That's what's happening in Prakriti. You might even be able to call it the Matrix. Time and object come together to give life. And in Chaitanya, consciousness, time and object disappear. There is manifestation at the lower level and merger at the higher level. And that's kind of what I said a bit earlier. That's what I said earlier. On these lower levels, everything seems so different. Everything seems scattered and separate. But the more you begin to go up these planes, the more you start to see that there's similarities, not differences. Things become unified and absolved into one. It doesn't appear that way on the surface because you're looking through the eyes of an object. That's part of the difference. But when you look inside, you look at what's behind the expressions, you start to see a unified essence. That's just how it goes. But yeah, J-Cam, you have some good advice there. And that's exactly what I said earlier when you first asked the question, Ben12345. I said, you asked about being attacked, and I said, because you identify as something to be attacked. And that's now becoming evident in your language. Look at what you're saying. You said that evil shit travels on the wind. You said, I feel like going out in public wearing all white just to be safe. That is not language that is empowering. You're speaking from a perspective of something that needs to protect itself. If you continue to see through that lens, you're going to keep getting the results that you're getting. So you literally have to switch that framework. You have to disengage from this perspective of being under attack and all these things and needing to protect yourself from attack. Like, just thinking that way causes it to manifest. You know what I'm saying? But, we'll see. Yeah, that's what I was going to highlight. There's manifestation at the lower level and merger at the higher level. There's manifestation at the lower level and merger at the higher level. The placement of the triangles within the yantra represents the flow of energy during specific mental states or conditions. So there it is. It's not so much about just a bunch of triangles placed there for no reason. It's actually a map. It's a map. The placement of the triangles within the yantra represents the flow of energy during specific mental states or conditions. It is not arbitrary. So the upward triangles we know are what represents consciousness. The downward triangles are what represents matter or Shakti, the descending into form. There's a story in that shape. But just like this book, if you don't know how to read English, then you're not going to be able to read it. Once you begin to unlock these symbols, you start to understand what they actually mean. So we talked about the 4 gates of the square. We talked about the circle. Now we're talking about the triangle and what they represent. The upward triangle, the downward triangle. Hot tamale. Hot tamale. Representations of energy movement. The energy expressions are different when one is angry, when one is afraid. Right? The energy expressions are different when one is angry, when one is afraid, when one is aggressive, and when one is peaceful. You cannot speak at the table of the masters until your words have lost their ability to sting. The energy expressions are different when one is angry, when one is afraid, when one is aggressive, and when one is peaceful. Don't that make sense? They change at different times because of the mood. The mood reflects the change in the behavior pattern or state of passive consciousness and passive energy. If consciousness and energy are passive, you will be calm and quiet. But if a spike is experienced in the dimension of consciousness and energy, at the point you will feel distraction, disturbance, and agitation. The moods of our mind reflect the change of energy flow in the Shakti systems. The cause may be external or internal, but where energy is altered, your perceptions change. You get that? This is another key that can be used in your self-analysis. The placement of various triangles within the circle represents the movement of energy in different levels of experience. Okay? For example, when you're angry, the energy is dynamic and vibrant, but when you meditate, the energy is smooth and passive. When you're feeling passion, the energy becomes dynamic and aggressive. When you're in a positive environment, the energy becomes peaceful. We attribute that to our likes and dislikes, the mind, senses, desires, and expectations. Whatever the cause, the flow of energy and awareness have both changed. We're talking about the flow of awareness and energy, which are baby forms of consciousness and matter. The triangles in the yantras represent the flow of energy. If a yantra has 3 triangles, it means that 3 levels of energy are being dealt with. Right away, I look at this. How many triangles are in this? But he does mention 3 triangles, and that's what I see right here. We're dealing with 3 levels in this yantra. After this, I think it's time to start breaking down yantras. What do y'all think? Show me somebody who's up here talking about some spiritual shit that can do that. You can be the first. Wow, the triangles in the yantras represent the flow of energy. If the yantra has 3 triangles, it means that 3 levels of energy are being dealt with. If the yantra has 20 triangles, it means that one has to realize 20 levels of mental behavior or states of consciousness. Man, golly, man. That's cool. That's cool. Each triangle represents either a major or minor alteration on the frequency of consciousness and energy. Different symbols represent different activities that take place in the depths of the unconscious at the level of instincts, samskaras, karmas, and destiny. Whoa, I just got a realization there. This is great. Literally staring at these yantras and fixating on them, you're tuning into specific level. Like it's almost as if they made it to certain levels of consciousness and they brought down a map of how you can get there too. That's what you're looking at. When you look at this, you're seeing a map of a specific level of consciousness. No one can tell you how to tap into it. You just have to know how to tap into it by knowing what you're looking at and connecting with this thing on an inner level. Yo, these are more than just shapes. We're looking at maps. And don't you see a level of circles, squares, and triangles here? I hope you do. Ooh, this is good stuff. Yantra science. Man, this ain't no baby food. This ain't baby food. Let's keep going. Different symbols represent different activities that take place in the depths of the unconscious at the level of instincts, samskaras, karmas, and destiny. Notice there we've got that bindu point. See that? We've also got a bindu point here. And if you really want to get crispy, we got a bindu point here. I also see a square with a circle in it. This is not baby food. Wow. MC Maestro says, so basically someone took yantras and the tree and called it sacred geometry. Right. You know how they do. This is amazing. Sadi Eject says, map how to travel, Mr. Soul. Right. Taking it back to the passive poverty and nivritti. Nuru says, there's only life, birth, and rebirth as a body until you realize you are not a body, but a deathless, eternal life form that doesn't need a body. Death is just a transition and rebirth until unending bliss. Exactly. All this stuff that's happening, it's happening to the body. You don't get out of it until you realize that you're not the body, literally. But that's a hard thing to understand. It's a hard thing to understand. Knowing it is not the same thing as understanding it. You can hear what I'm saying, but that don't mean you understand. Likewise, what Nuru said, you can hear that the body is not the same thing as the soul, but you got to come to an experience of that thing, man. This is great. J Cam says, man, I've been going down the rabbit hole, but definitely need to go over more of your material. This is exactly what I need. Shit, me too. Stray Panther says, crystal grids, sigil magic. Right? Ooh, tools for Tantra. I'm gonna have to check that out after this live stream, because I can't tap on it right now. Thank you, Sunshine Chick. All right, so we're reaching the end of this study. Okay, I see that my battery's at 11%. I'm not gonna risk it. I'm gonna grab my charger. Give me just a second. Just a glittery second. BRB. Lovely. Good stuff. Oh, look, nobody left. How fancy. Phone charged. All right. Okay, all right. Let's continue. So, in the center of the yantra, in the center of the yantra is the point, the bindu. The bindu is the seat and focal point of the power that governs and controls the yantra that one is focusing on. The seat and the focal point of the power that governs and controls the yantra that one is focusing on. The yantra becomes the plate on which the fire of mantra is kindled. Remember, this chapter is called Mantra and Yantra and Internal Havan. And I mentioned at the beginning of this live stream that havan is a ritual where the sacrifice is burned on the altar. So I think he's about to connect the dots here. So he says, the yantra becomes the plate on which the fire of mantra is kindled. The yantra becomes the plate on which the fire of mantra is kindled. So the mantra is the fire that we're dealing with. The mantra is the fire. The yantra is the plate. So I wonder what sacrifice is being burned. All right. The yantra becomes the plate on which the fire of mantra is kindled. In a havan, a yantra is drawn on the havan plate, depending on the result one wants to achieve. The yantra is not chosen on a whim or due to its beauty. If that were done, then the whole purpose would be lost. When you go to school, you have to study all the subjects, irrespective of whether you like them or not. If you negate something which you don't like or don't feel inspired by, it is due to your own lack of understanding. In the case of a yantra, if you go by your whims, you are negating the spiritual composition of forces and energies. Again, in the case of yantra, if you go by your whims, you are negating the spiritual composition of forces and energies. Yantra represents the energy of a particular quality of power. Yantra represents the energy of a particular quality of power. Each yantra, according to its combination of circles, squares, triangles, hexagons, pentagons, etc., represents either a masculine or a feminine power. The masculine power represents the power of consciousness, devata, and the feminine power represents the power of cosmic energy, devi. Thus, there are Shiva yantras and Shakti yantras. Both use triangles, squares, and other geometric patterns, but their placement is such that they became a focal point for different powers. When you concentrate or gaze on a yantra, that image is captured by the camera of the subconscious mind. Our subconscious mind is continuously capturing pictures and images, even though our conscious mind recognizes only a few based on its focus at any given moment. I am looking at you, but I know that my mind is picking up pictures of the trees that I can see in the periphery of my vision. The shape of the trees is being registered by the mind, although I'm not aware of them. I'm not even watching them, but my mind is capturing that information. Therefore, when you look at a yantra, it may not mean much to you, but it means a lot to the energy patterns of your mind. These inner energy patterns begin to respond to concentration and awareness when you meditate on a yantra. As those images create powerful psychological impressions. So these energy patterns begin to respond to concentration and awareness when you meditate on a yantra, as those images create powerful psychological impressions. Developing the intuitive mind. As I was telling you earlier, children experience enhanced creativity by coloring in yantras without even understanding what they are. Every child knows, I am painting a house, a tree, or the sun. The intellectual thought is there, but when they color a yantra, what can they think of? It is not a house, scenery, or a person. It is not identifiable. It is only squares and triangles and circles. However, just concentration on the image affects and improves intuitive and creative thinking. Intuitive thinking occurs as flashes. Malcolm Gladwell, in his book Blink, gives the example of an investigation into the authenticity of a famous sculpture. In 1983, an art dealer approached the J. Paul Getty Museum in California with what he said was a Greek 6th century BC marble statue. It was a well-known but rare sculpture known as kouros, of which there were only about 200 in the world. The statues that had already been discovered were either severely damaged or relics from archaeological finds, but this statue was in perfect condition. After 14 months of detailed and scientific examination in the authenticity of the sculpture, the museum agreed to buy it, and it went on display in 1986. However, during its time at the museum, the sculpture came under further scrutiny. To some experts, in spite of its validation, it just didn't look right. One art historian found himself inexplicably drawn to the fingertips of the statue, which seemed wrong to him. To one expert, when she viewed the statue, she immediately there was a feeling that something was amiss, but she didn't know what. The first response in the mind of another was that the statue looked fresh, not an appropriate response to a genuine 2,000-year-old statue. The museum called a meeting of experts in Greece and shipped the sculpture to Athens to have it investigated further. There, it met with an even stronger criticism. One expert felt that he was looking at the statue through glass. Another could tell it had never been in the ground. Another felt intuitive repulsion towards it. Eventually, it was discovered that the statue was a forgery. The intuitive responses turned out to be the correct ones, rather than the museum's 14 months of legal and scientific investigations. Those first responses were feelings that no one could explain, a feeling of just knowing. Those first thoughts are intuitions, those you cannot rationalize. Concentration on yantras develops intuitive as well as creative ability. Intuition means that you are already connected with whatever you need to know. A connection already exists. Peace, Amar. Nuru says, what is burning in the apparatus of the yantra is ignorance, falsehood, illusion. What's disappearing is the belief that you are a body and that you die. Yes, sir. So here, check out the sentence again. Concentration on yantras develops intuitive as well as creative ability. Intuition means that you are already connected with whatever you need to know. A connection already exists. Intuition is real. It works strongly between mother and child. If the child is in another location and falls ill, the mother begins to feel uncomfortable, and memories of the child flash, although she doesn't know that her child is sick. That intuitive feeling comes. The memory and remembrance comes as she phones her child to see if everything's all right. Combined force of mantra and yantra. All right, check this out. Many years ago, I read that the vibration of the Bija mantra of Devi, Hrim, and the mantra Om of the Vedas are the same. At that time, I did not understand, as after all, they are two different sounds and are pronounced differently. Years later, during my global travels, I saw an instrument which created pictures based on the vibrations of audible sound. I started chanting the mantra Om before the instrument. The picture that emerged after some time was that of the Sri Yantra. And the Bij mantra of the Sri Yantra is Hrim. This is the Sri Yantra. Check this out. Yantras bypass the mental or intellectual level. They exert an influence at the level of chitta and ahamkara. Remember, I said that chitta translates as memory. Ahamkara translates as ego or identity attachment. So it says that yantras bypass the mental or intellectual level. They exert an influence at the level of chitta and ahamkara. Mantras act at the level of manas and buddhi. And remember, manas represents the body mind, and buddhi represents the higher aspect of mind, which is closer to intuition. And they open the lock of chitta and ahamkara. Manas and buddhi are the areas of mantra, and to explore the realms of chitta and ahamkara, you need the yantra. So basically, he's talking about earlier, we talked about the antakarana for several months, but the four gates here on the square of the yantra represents those four aspects of the inner instrument, the four aspects of the mind. And at one level, you've got manas, right? Manas represented by the physical body, the five senses, the aggregate of sight, sound, taste, touch, hearing. And then up here, you've got buddhi, which represents the access to the higher self, the higher aspect of self. Now, what he says here is that mantra is what affects manas and buddhi. Then we've got ahamkara and chitta. Ahamkara represents I, me, ego. You see something you like, you see something you don't like, you gravitate towards it, you run away from it. Craving and aversion, like and dislike. That's the basic function of ego. On the other side, we've got chitta, which represents memory, the storehouse of memory, but not just your personal memory, all memory across this whole thing. But you only carve out a small slice of that and say that that's your personal memory. Yantras are what affects that level. These images here that he's talking about, that affects ego and chitta, ahamkara and chitta. Mantra affects manas and buddhi, body and higher self. So notice how they work together. I'll read that whole thing again. Yantras bypass the mental or intellectual level. They exert an influence at the level of chitta and ahamkara. Mantras act as a level of manas and buddhi and open the lock of chitta and ahamkara. So they work together. You need the mantras to unlock the yantras. Manas and buddhi are the areas of mantra, and to explore the realms of chitta and ahamkara, you need the yantra. Both become very powerful tools for internal enlightenment. Therefore, mantra and yantra are the most important components of Tantra. When you have the right yantra and practice the corresponding mantra, the effect doubles. For example, if you are chanting a Shiva mantra, Om Namah Shivaya, and you have the Shiva yantra placed before you, and simultaneously practice Tritaka on it, the experience will be very intense. But first, one has to work through the gross levels of the mind. Sri Swamiji gives the example that if you run 440 volts of current through a wire which is capable of carrying only 220 volts, the wire will burn out. In every building there are switches, lights, and fans, but they all function only 220 volts. If 440 volts is supplied through those wires, the fuses will blow. Similarly, this structure of ours is wired for 220 volts of energy which flows through manas, buddhi, chitta, and ahamkara. Our body is conditioned to accept only 220 volts. That is the capacity of the senses, the nerves, and the brain circuits. In order to increase the potency of the current, one has to work through the gross first. Mantra and yantra together become an internal havan. On the plate of consciousness and energy, you are lighting the fire of mantra. That is the tantric concept of sadhana. But tantric teachings are not given openly, as people are not ready to receive these higher teachings. Therefore, during these 4 days, I have given you a glimpse into the concept of mantra and yantra according to the tantric perspective. With this awareness, you can begin to modify your understanding and approach to your spiritual development. In this way, you can definitely go very far, and that will be your achievement in this life. 11:11. Right on time. All right. All right. So what do you guys think of that? All right. So MC Maestro asks, to some, why does mantra unlock yantra? Why, he says. Could have something to do with the level of vibration that we're working with. According to the evolution of the Tatwas, the element of vibration or sound comes at least 2 levels before vision comes. So it very well may be that mantra is actually more subtle than yantra. So he said we have to work through the gross in order to get to the subtle. He also mentions earlier in this book how yantras are the visual aspect of the mantras, referencing that the mantra is what comes first. Really, in dealing with the subtle essence of anything spiritual, it goes beyond the level of vision, and you're getting closer and closer to pure vibration. So that would probably be a clue as to why the mantra unlocks the yantra. Good stuff. Matthew Watson says, this was a good one. I'm glad I read it again. You clear up some confusion I had. Awesome, awesome, possum. Love it. Good stuff, good stuff. So we've officially gotten through this book here, Mantra and Yantra. And if you've been with me for the whole year so far, that would make 1. We also did Karma and Karma Yoga. That was 2. And then we started with the Passive Poverty and Nivriti. That was 3. 1, 2, 3. We also did Ladder of Lights. That makes 4. And we're currently working through a practical guide to Kabbalistic symbolism. So coming up next, right away, next week, we're going to start with this one here, like I mentioned, which is Jnana Yoga. And this is going to continue as a culmination of the previous things that we read about karma, about mantra and yantra, about the paths of poverty and nivriti. All right, so all of that's going to come together and start making sense here in Jnana Yoga. And then finally, after all of that, we're going to get into the foundation of this entire science, which is Samkhya. And if your awareness is refined enough, then that should answer pretty much all the questions you have about this type of information. And it's going to cause a very stable platform, foundation, to begin studying this text, which I think I'm pretty much going to study every single year in June. Why not? Mystical Kabbalah. We're definitely diving into this in June, so get ready. We've been preparing for it, and we'll be able to tackle it with a deep level of understanding unlike anybody else you've ever seen. Unless you personally know somebody with a higher rank in the Golden Dawn. Which you might. Who knows? There might be somebody in this chat who's affiliated. Just making sure that I know what I'm talking about. Alright, so it seemed like for the most part, you guys got something out of this. MC Maestro says Trav took a detour to patch the fundamentals. Exactly. I started this whole thing to teach fundamentals, but I'm getting to the point where I can't really hold on to both fundamentals and advanced at the same time. So consider this somewhat of like a last roundup, because we moving forward. That's for sure. MC Maestro says Return of Doth, man, in June. Hey, who knows? Maybe he's preparing too. Esh says new subscriber. Thank you. I'm glad you stuck around. I hope you really learned something. For sure, for sure. Okay. All right. Well, that's that. One more time. Get this book. And this one too. And then eventually that one. So I think it's time for me to go ahead and tap out. All right. So yeah, have a great day. And we will talk about this on the live stream on Sunday, pretty much around 1 o'clock. I'll try not to be too much later than that. But if this is your first time being here, I appreciate you coming through. Hit that like button on your way out if you have not done so. And for those of you who are in my class, the Inner Light Activation System, we will be meeting up tomorrow at the usual time, 8 p.m. Eastern, talking about our experience with this transcendental meditation here. And of course, moving on to the next, which is a Golden Dawn tradition called Tatwa Vision. And again, all these really help to come into a deep awareness and understanding of the higher self, these inner planes. So we're getting there. Shout out to all the Nandas, Niranjan Ananda, Satyananda, Satyasangananda, Sivananda, and so on. Aw, We Grow Natural says I get sad at this part. Don't get sad. There's always tomorrow. I'll keep you occupied with motivational memes. No more Chris Rock and Will Smith, though. I reached my limit with that. Matthew Watson. Okay, so tomorrow noon. Yeah, we can do that. Tomorrow noon. Eastern time, right? Yeah, I'll check. If you scheduled it, then I'll check for sure. All right, so I'm heading out. This is TK Trav, aka Travis Magus, here with LVX777. I love you guys. Peace.